Chapter 530, Why Cultivate Martial Arts. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. There was not a single soul on the surface of the sea. What was left was a picture scroll bobbing up and down with the waves. What kind of a picture scroll is this? It was able to take the blow from the thunder hammer without breaking into pieces. Overcome with curiosity, the creature with a human head and a flood dragon's body picked up the yin-yang wooden graph and studied it carefully. Earlier on, the thunderbolt emitted by the thunder hammer was so glaring that it overshadowed the light emitted by the yin-yang wooden graph, so much so that the human-headed flood dragon creature did not notice that Zhang Yuochen had entered into the scroll world, believing that Zhang Yuochen had been annihilated. This has to be a treasure. I will carry it back with me so I may take my time to study it. After spending some time browsing through it, he remained clueless about the contents of the yin-yang wooden graph. He could only roll it up and stuff it into one of his scales. The human-headed flood dragon creature glanced down at the red cloud pythons below him and said, "I have annihilated that human trespasser. Let's all perk up and continue to patrol around since there has been an increase in the number of these human trespassers in the Xixuan Sea region. I heard that they are searching for the Xuanwu heritage place." The human-headed flood dragon creature was one of the 6 commanders-in-chief who were subordinate to the black skeleton flood dragon king. From the sea waters, the gigantic head of a red cloud python emerged and said, "Is there really this Xuanwu heritage place within the Xixuan Sea?" The human-headed flood dragon creature coldly said, "I've lived in the Xixuan Sea for over 1,000 years, but have never heard of this Xuanwu heritage place. However, the Xixuan Sea is mighty and vast. There are a few places that even the Lord of the Flood Dragons dares not enter, so there really might be a treasure here." Yet another red cloud python lifted its head and asked, "But Commander, where are those few places?" The human-headed flood dragon creature glared at it and replied with a low voice, saying, "Don't tell me you still want to find out more about this Xuanwu heritage place. To be honest, those locations were historical murderlands, so don't even think to enter them because you will surely die if you do. Furthermore, the Lord of the Flood Dragons has commanded us to patrol the Xixuan Sea and annihilate any extraterritorial trespassers. What's most important now is to carry out our duty. Let's move on to the next target." The human-headed flood dragon creature led the group of flood dragons to dive into the water to continue their search for any other extraterritorial trespassers. Upon returning to the scroll world, Zhang Yuochen immediately ingested a recovery pill and started to nurse his injuries. This was the first time ever that he had gotten so severely wounded. His left shoulder was badly burnt and oozing blood. Sharp pain shot through his right thigh as it was frostbitten by the ice of profound. A lesion ran through the back of his head where he was struck by the wind blade and it looked as if it was almost going to be split in two. His entire body was covered with injuries. It was an appalling sight. However, his abdomen and back were unscathed as they were shielded by the yin-yang wooden graph. Huang Yanchen, standing beside him, could imagine the danger back then just by looking at the condition of Zhang Yuochen's injuries. "I could have helped him if only I had reached a high enough level of cultivation." Huang Yanchen was a strong-headed person. She was arrogant and would not easily admit defeat. However, she felt inadequate at this moment because she could not help Zhang Yuochen at all. Blackie yawned, stretched, and got up, saying, "Why should you be guilt-stricken? It is up to him to surmount the next level of the ultimate realm from his current heaven realm. There is no way other people can help him. While it is easy to accumulate 30 million military merit points, it is difficult to win the acceptance of the gods. He must not fall short in great strength, great courage, and great wisdom. How many among these numerous talents are able to reach the ultimate realm?" Huang Yanchen frowned and said coldly, "Does he have to risk his life time and again just to accumulate more military merits?" "That's right." Blackie continued, "It is impossible for one who does not put up a desperate fight to accumulate 30 million military merits. Girl, there is no way that others could help him. I would suggest you try to surmount the fish dragon realm. Otherwise not only will you lag far behind Zhang Yuochen, you will also be lagging far behind the other 2 girls in terms of your cultivation level." Alxinian and Orange Star Emissary had been cultivating themselves in the world inside the scroll for 3 months under Blackie's guidance. On top of that, The sacred chi emitted by the sacred prime tree had helped them transcend the limitations of mortals and allowed them to reach the first change in the fish-dragon realm. Moreover, their levels of cultivation were rapidly increasing. Huang Yanchen pouted, still unconvinced, as she shook her head and said, "Let's talk when he wakes up. There is no rush to cultivate ourselves now." Over 3 days, Zhang Yuochen had ingested huge amounts of the blood of the wood spirit, and with the help of those healing pills, he recovered 30% from his injuries and his condition was finally stabilized. Boom! A loud noise arose. Cracks appeared on Zhang Yuochen's skin. A layer of perfectly smooth and fair skin was visible through the cracks. Blackie squinted his eyes, smiled, and said, "He is rightfully called a monk of chakras, for his skin has transformed into growth rings, with every ring depicting a new life." After a while, Zhang Yuochen emerged from a heap of shells, having recuperated from his external injuries. Zhang Yuochen made some crackling noises while he shook his entire body loose. He then heaved a sigh and said, "That was close. I would have lost my life in the Xixuan Sea if I was a little slower." Huang Yanchen turned her eyes and said, "You did great. Not only did you escape death from the ambush of the flood dragons, you even slew 4 red cloud pythons. This will be extensively reported in the Eastern Region Report once news travels back to Kunlun's field." Zhang Yuochen was a modest man. He laughed and said, "I'm not as great as you imagine. It would be impossible for me to survive the flood dragon's ambush if not for the yin-yang wooden graph." Huang Yanchen asked, "So what are your plans as of now?" "What else can I do? I will nurse myself back to health and continue to accumulate military merits," replied Zhang Yuochen. Huang Yanchen clenched her teeth, hesitated for a second, and finally warned him, saying, "Honestly, there is no need for you to reach the ultimate realm of the heaven realm." There were countless saints and emperors in history who still were deemed the most powerful figures despite not reaching that ultimate realm. Zhang Yuochen shook his head and said, "I'm not bothered about what other people do, or what happens in the future. I just want to do my best for now." Huang Yanchen said sharply, "Why do we practice martial arts and pursue reaching the saint path? Do we need to risk our lives just to become stronger? What would happen to your loved ones if you met with any mishap? What would happen to your mother?" Although Huang Yanchen was reserved in expressing her emotions, Zhang Yuochen could still sense her concern for his safety. She tried to warn him and dissuade him because she was worried about him. Perhaps the most important thing to her was that Zhang Yuochen continued to live. To her, there was no need for him to risk his life to reach the ultimate realm of the heaven realm. However, she was not aware that Zhang Yuochen had personal reasons. He had to become stronger or even the strongest, otherwise, how would he be able to take revenge on Empress Kaiyao? Zhang Yuochen had no idea how to explain this to Huang Yanchen. After pondering for a long time, he said, "The purpose of cultivating martial arts is not for competition, name, money, or for destruction. It is for when I meet her. I want to be standing instead of kneeling down before her the day I see her. If that day ever comes, perhaps there will only be one living soul left. Who is she?" Huang Yanchen questioned further. Zhang Yuochen looked intently at Huang Yanchen and said, "Senior sister apprentice, there are some things that I can't tell you now, but please believe me, I am going to live on and take you as my wife. I will not let down those who care for me. I will keep my promise." His voice sounded firm and exuded a confidence that left no room for doubt. Zhang Yuochen continued nursing his injuries after he finished speaking. Huang Yanchen, realizing that no one could change Zhang Yuochen, just sighed and left. Perhaps she should also make an effort in cultivating herself, not so much for a name, but so she could be of help to him in the future. After Zhang Yuochen recovered from his internal injuries, he ingested another dragon pearl. 2 days later, he broke through to the late stage of the completion of the heaven realm, thereby stepping up his strength. I wonder if the human-headed flood dragon creature has taken the yin-yang wooden graph. Zhang Yuochen released the spiritual power of his mind to unite with the yin-yang wooden graph. At that instant, the strength of Zhang Yuochen's spiritual power revealed an underwater rock cave, which appeared to be the lair of the red cloud pythons. Presently, the yin-yang wooden graph was placed on top of a red coral table in the cave. That human-headed flood dragon creature was lying prone and coiled up in the cave, with its head hanging in midair, and was studying the yin-yang wooden graph. What on earth is this picture scroll that it could withstand the blade of a sword and burning fire? It must be some fabulous thing. If I were to offer this to the Lord of Flood Dragons, he could surely make sense of it. Right when this human-headed flood dragon creature was about to put away the yin-yang wooden graph, a green light suddenly emerged from the scroll and fine lines started appearing on the scroll. What is happening? The human-headed flood dragon creature paused and looked curiously at the picture scroll. Crash! Suddenly, with a flash of sword radiance, the Abyss Ancient Sword flew out of the picture scroll and struck the human-headed flood dragon creature on its face, piercing its left eye and breaking half of its head into pieces. Ah! The human-headed flood dragon creature let out a shrill of agony, stretched out one of its claws, and struck the coral table, shattering it. How could Zhang Yuochen let this opportunity slip away? It was high time. He dashed out of the scroll world, grabbed the Abyss Ancient Sword and struck the neck of the human-headed flood dragon creature with the sword.